After joining the center back of the skirt, go ahead to take the side shape. Divide the waist circumference by 2. The remaining allowance at the end, share it into 2 again. Come down by 9 inches to get the hip line and repeat the same process. Come down by 17 inches to get the half length of the skirt. On the half length of the skirt, minus 3 inches from what you have on the hip circumference divided by 2. In this case, we have 17 inches. The remaining allowance divided by 2 as we've done before. Place exactly what you have on the half length of the skirt on the skirt hem. Connect a straight line from the half length of the skirt to the skirt hem, and with a curve, connect from the waist to the hip and the hip to the half length of the skirt. When you are done with one side of the skirt, place the remaining seam allowance on the reverse side of the skirt and connect the side shape. Before sewing, remove stones or beads that might be on the way of your seam line. Sew the side seams on both sides of the skirt and repeat the same process on the lining fabric. For the lining piece, before sewing the side seam all the way to the hem, leave some space to fold the hem. Here I'll be folding by ½ inch and 1 inch, making it 1.5 inches. Repeat same process on the other side of the lining. This is the loop piece for the back yoke, measuring 2 inches length by 1.5 inches width. Fold it half and half again and top stitch. The back yoke will require 2 loop pieces in total. Come in with the back yoke and turn the neckline by 0.5 inch. Reduce the seam allowance around the neckline by trimming out. The loop is attached by twisting once, place on fold, flatten out the yoke and place the folded part of the loop facing inwards. Attach the second loop, leaving about 0.5 inch seam allowance to turn out. Cover that area as shown with the tool serving as the lining and sew by 0.5 inch. Trim off excess seam allowance and sew with a straight line to secure the loops. Turn the yoke piece inside out and it should look like this. Repeat the same process on the other yoke, although it doesn't require a loop. Next, we will join the shoulder. I've gone ahead to join the other shoulder. Place right sides together as shown. Pick the tool serving as the lining piece. Cover the shoulder as shown and sew by 0.5 inch. Trim excess seam allowances and the yoke is ready. Assemble the bodice. We're starting with the front piece. Place the side front on the center front and sew by 0.5 inch. Start from the hem, stop at the underbust and reverse starting from the top. This tip helps the fabric align nicely. The cup should look like this when you are done, and go ahead to assemble the other side front on the center front. When you are done, the front part of the bodice is ready. Move on to the back piece. Place the middle back on the side back and sew by 0.5 inch. Repeat the same process on the other back piece. When you are done, the back pieces are complete. Come in with the grommet bar fabric. I recommend you always notch the upper part of the back pieces for easy identification. Kindly check the link in the description box to see the steps on how to assemble the grommet bar. Come down by 0.5 inch from the top of the back bodice. Place the right side of the grommet bar on the right side of the fabric and sew by 0.5 inch. Place the right side of the yoke on the right side of the back bodice, starting from the armhole area, sew by 0.5 inch as shown. Next, come in with the lining piece. Place the right side of the lining on the right side of the back bodice. Layer it with a fusible web and sew the top area by 0.5 inch. The yoke is sandwiched between the main fabric and the lining piece. Next, face the seam allowance of the middle back by 0.5 inch as shown. This way, the grommet bar is sandwiched between the lining and the main fabric. Turn inside out and it should look like this. Repeat the same process on the other back piece. The back piece is fully assembled. Next, come in with the lining piece for the front bodice. and top stitch regling boning on the seam allowance lines. You can go ahead to cover the edges with a paper tape to avoid it poking through the fabric. On both sides of the regling boning, widthwise, there is a smoother area. You are to top stitch on those smooth lines. Top stitch the regling boning on all seam allowances on the front lining piece and on the back lining piece. On each regling boning channel, you are to pass through a plastic boning of 0.25 inch. Measure the lines with the plastic boning to cut out what you need. With a scissors, curve the edge of the plastic boning as shown to help it pass through easily. Here I'm using a scissors as a tool to push it in properly. All regling channels have plastic bonings inserted. The empty channels on the grommet bar, you can go ahead to also pass through plastic bonings. Sew a dart of 1/2 inch on both bra cups. Place it on the cup area starting from the underbust of the main fabric piece. Sew around the flat edge of the bra cup. Ensure the bust point of the bra cup is well centered, matching with the bra cup of the main fabric. Stretch the main fabric as you sew. This helps the copy effect more sturdy. Kindly repeat the same process on the other cup area. Place the front bodies of the main fabric on a body form. Lay the net applique over it. Pin and adjust the applique to fit around the bodice area. It is unlikely for it to stay flat. Cut through on the side to create a bust dart. Overlap as it will fit and pin in place. For aesthetic purposes and for a neat finish, you can tack with applique cut out from the George fabric with beads or any sew accessory as preferred. Keep adjusting, pinning till the applique takes its form. Create another bust dart on the other side of the blouse. When you are done and everything is laying nicely, go ahead to trim off the excess around the blouse area. When you are done, the front bodies should look this pretty. Top stitch the net applique on the bodies along the overbust. Come in with the back bodies, match up the side and sew the side seam by the inches left for the seam allowance. Here it is 1.5 inches. Sew down the other side seam. Place the front yoke on the front bodies. I like to start from the middle to get the sweetheart neck curve properly. Sew to one end and continue sewing from the middle to the other end. When you are done, it should look like this. Next, come in with the front lining, placing right side of the lining on the right side of the main fabric. Match up the seams and sew by 0.5 inch. Notch around the seam lines to release any tension. Next, take the side seams of the lining piece. Again, you are to sew by the seam allowance created. Here is 1.5 inches. It is advisable to bend in seam allowances like a triangle as shown. It helps release tension around where you would sew across. I am doing this on the hem. I'll repeat same on the armhole of both the main fabric and the lining. Trim excess fabric around the yoke area if necessary. Close the blouse hem. Here I'm showing you the plastic bonings has been inserted into the channels, leaving 0.5 inch space at the hem. Come in with your fabric strip 1.5 inches widthwise. Start sewing from the wrong side by 0.5 inch. Match up seam lines as you sew along. When you reach the end, turn to the right side, fold in half and half again and top stitch. Now the blouse is 70% ready. We'll go ahead to insert the zipper on the skirt. The zipper stop point is 8 inches. Go below that point and start sewing your zipper from 9 inch towards the waistline. Reverse and start from the waistline to the zipper stop point. Remove the loose stitch, securing the center back so you can unzip. Face the zipper allowance with the lining for a clean finish. When you are done facing the zipper lines, it should look like this. To design the sleeve, Use a soldering iron to remove the applique on the remaining tulle net as shown. It is time to make the skirt and the blouse a dress. Weave the waistline of your skirt. Place the blouse on fold. From the under bust, mark the half length of 16 inches, but in this case we'll be using 17 inches. Highlight the line. Unzip the skirt, placing it on fold on the center front. Match up the side seam of the skirt with the side seam of the blouse. Likewise, match up the center front of the skirt with the center front of the blouse. We will come down by 3 inches from the skirt waist. For seam allowance purposes, come down by 2.5. Come in from the side seam of the skirt by 1 inch and create a curve matching the 2.5 points. Go ahead to cut it out. Bend in the seam allowances like a triangle as we did for the blouse. Pin it in place and you should weave the waistline. Match up the center back of the skirt with that of the back. We are to turn in the waistline crossing the grommet bar. Right side on right side, you sew by 0.5 inch. In this case, we have about 3 inches width. Go ahead to sew, cut off the excess zipper and notch the 3-inch points. When you turn inside out, it should look like this. Repeat the same process on the other side. Measure from one side seam to the other side seam of the front bodice of the blouse. Mark the middle points. Measure the inches from the hem to the half length. In this case, it is 6 inches. Place on the other side. Match up the side seam of the skirt with that of the blouse. Take the middle of the skirt and place it on the middle point of the blouse as shown. Start sewing from the middle point. When you get to the seam line where a plastic boning is, you are to skip it and continue. So when you sew, backstitch, lift up your foot, skip the plastic boning, backstitch again and continue sewing to the side seam all the way to the center back. As you sew along, before the center back there is another seam where a plastic boning was inserted. Backstitch, skip that boning and start sewing till you get to the end. The plastic boning cannot be sewn on. Take a look at what you've done so far. To sew the other side, you are to mark the length of the boning seam as shown, place it on the other side. This is so you are sure that the basque is even on both sides. Connect the points, take the measurement on the back seam lines as well, and place it on the other side of the back. This time you are to start sewing from the center back to the middle point. Skip all the plastic boning seam lines. When you get to the middle point, you can decide to create a small notch. This is to release any tension on the middle area. When you are done, the wrong side should look like this. You can use a matching thread, and when you turn to the right side and zip, it should look like this as well. I am showing you the area turned in along the waistline of the center back over the grommets. Here is the modesty panel we will be attaching later on as we proceed. Next, we will be attaching the sleeve. First, top stitch the applique on the areas they've been pinned on. You can use a glue V6000, but in this tutorial, I will be top stitching. Top stitch round the area of each applique. When you are done with this, go ahead to sew the side seams of the sleeve. A quick tip before you sew the side seam: match the tip of the sleeve with the shoulder and measure it around to the armhole. The remaining fabric left on the sleeve becomes the seam allowance you will use in holding the side seams. Sew the side seams as a French seam. Place it on fold on the good side and sew by ½ inch. When you are done, trim off the excess fabric, turn it inside out and sew again by ½ inch, depending on the seam allowance left after measuring it around the armhole. Match up the side seam of the sleeve with the side seam of the bodice. Match up the shoulder area as well and sew it round like a circle. Cut a fabric strip by width 1.5 inches, place it on fold and place it on fold again and unfold again and sew it down very close to the fold. The length can be as long as 110 inches or 120 inches. This is the rope to create the back lacing. Hem the lining by stitching, but here a fusible web was used. Close up the side seams that weren't sewn all the way to the end, both center backs and both sides of the lining hem. Here is the slit area of the center back. Here is the wrong side of the dress. Pass the lacing rope on one of the eyelets and tie it down in place. You are to drape the net on the client wearing the dress. Place the net on fold first and later on make it uneven, allowing the front to drop more than the back with about 10 to 15 inches. When you get your desired midpoint, hold it on either side. You are to gather that area by hand stitching till get to the point where the length is suitable for your client's body. Lock the stitch and secure it tightly. From the waistline, mark where you want the drape to be placed and stitch to the main dress. Drape across the front to the other side seam or as preferred. Once again, secure your stitch very tightly. When you are done with this, proceed to drape the other side of the net. Here, the desired style is to tack on the center back as shown. While you drape, let your creativity guide you. Finally, the last drape goes matching up with the side seam. This is one style of the numerous fox wrapper styles. Secure the drape properly first on the net. The connection to the dress this time will be done with a hook and eye. The hook is placed on the wrapper or net, sewn severally to secure it tightly, while the eye is sewn on the dress, and at that point the connection takes place. If this tutorial was helpful, drop a comment. Please like, share and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on your notification bell for more videos. Thank you. Bye.